wanted to show you all my new watercolor palette. This beautiful handmade ceramic piece, I'll link it below where I got it, but this was a birthday present from my parents, and I picked out all these colors as a birthday present to myself and have created what I'm calling my dream watercolor palette. I have spent months researching colors, looking at swatches, watching reviews online, looking at mixing videos, and my choices have been narrowed down to these colors. I still have room for 5 more if I find some that I want to try, but this is a palette that is curated to fit the kinds of things that I love to paint. There are a lot of neutral blues and greens, a lot of earthy colors, and there are some really good mixing colors that can create even more moody, muted, neutral colors that fit the kinds of things that I like to paint. Here's the swatch card of all the colors, and you probably can't read it, but that's okay. I will go through and tell you what each of the colors are. I will get out the tubes that I have and show you. I've got some colors on here that I've had for a while, just single colors or small sets that I'd purchased several months ago, but a lot of these colors are brand new to me. I have been using the A Gallo Natural 24 palette for a long time now, and I love that palette, and I still love that palette. I'll always turn to it, but I wanted to create my very own palette from scratch, filling in with some colors that I knew I'd love, colors that I wanted to try, some unique colors, and I wanted to try some different brands. I really hadn't used Daniel Smith very often. I hadn't used the Jackson's brand at all, so I wanted to kind of broaden my horizons a little bit with this palette. So let's move that out of the way a little bit there. And this box right here has all of the colors that are on my palette. Some of them, like I said, are new, some of them are not, but I just put them all in here to keep them in one place. I ordered these paints, I think, yes, all of these paints came from Jackson's, except for one. There's an M-Gram color that I got from Amazon, but all of these came from Jackson's, and so if you want to purchase them yourself, you can use my link in the description and get 10% off your very first order from Jackson's. And I would appreciate you using that link as well, because I get a small commission whenever you do at no extra cost to you. So I would really value your support in that way. So many colors. Okay, let's dig through here, and I'm going to start off by showing you the pinks and purples that I have. I'm just going to go in order of the palette itself, and I'll pull up the swatch card as needed. But the very first color on my palette is this Potter's Pink, right next to Perylene Violet. Both of these are Schmincke. I've had this one for quite a while. It's, in my mind, it's kind of a must for landscape painting. It's such a beautiful pink color. It's actually a little darker than what you see on this swatch here in mass tone, but it's a very pretty granulating color. Great for mixing, great for neutrals. It's one I've used quite a bit, so that's why I have a big tube of that. And then the other color is Perylene Violet. It's this beautiful plum color right there. I have a color very similar to it in my A Gallo palette, and I wanted to have one on my main palette. And this is fairly close to it. It's not quite as opaque as the one on my A Gallo palette, but that was kind of intentional. I wanted one that was a little bit more transparent. This is also a little bit more reddish, probably, and more purpley, but I can easily add other colors to shift the hue one way or the other and get the color that I want. It's also really good for mixing, I hear. A good mixing palette always has at least one, preferably 2 red colors, and these are the ones that I chose. These are by Jackson's. I've never used Jackson's paint before, but I already really like it. I've used both of these already in some pieces, and they've turned out great. The Venetian red one, it's a beautiful, opaque, very earthy brick red, and this one is Carmine. It's a much more pinkish red. I'll show you the swatches here again real quick. See, it's a very rose color, the Carmine is, and this is the Venetian red. But I wanted a warm and a cool red because those can give you totally different ranges of mixes. These are both good for landscapes, both good for mixing. I probably wouldn't use the Carmine on its own. It's a little bit too hot pink for me, for my color palette tastes, but I will use it and have used it in mixing. And Venetian red, I have a gouache color of this color, and I have a color that's very similar to it in the A Gallo palette, but it's one that I turn to a lot for autumn landscapes or making browns, those kinds of things. So moving on, we have orange and yellows in this palette. These are by Daniel Smith and Schmincke. So Daniel Smith Quinacridone Burnt Orange. It's one of my new favorites on this palette. I've used it quite a bit already. It's a beautiful mixing color. It's granulating. It's good on its own too. It's not too vibrant of an orange. It's this one right here. But I love mixing orange with blues to make pretty grays, pretty browns, and neutrals, and this one's great for that. These two colors right here are New Gamboge and Yellow Ochre. These New Gamboge by Daniel Smith, this one's one of the mixing colors that people often turn to for their palette. It's a pretty orangey type of yellow. It's very vibrant. It's not one I'll use on its own really, but I can tone it down or mute it and use it that way, but I'm definitely going to use it for mixing. But this is a very warm yellow. Primarily, or traditionally, people will use a very cool, like a lemon yellow for their mixing palette to go with a more orange, but I had one at one time, but I really never used it. I used Yellow Ochre quite a bit more. I don't really mix very vibrant greens, very spring greens, so I just didn't feel the need to put one in this palette. Maybe I will, and if I do, then I'll add one later. But Yellow Ochre is definitely a staple for landscape painting. I love it so much. This is what it looks like right there. I like much more muted yellows than a vibrant lemon yellow. That's just not really part of my style. But anyway, so that's the yellows. Okay, so one of my favorite collections are the green colors. Some of these are not new. These two right here, I have the Schmincke Horadam Super Granulation Forest set. Absolutely love that set. I loved painting pieces with just those 5 colors, but these are 2 of my favorites from that set. This is Forest Brown and Forest Green. Let me show you on the swatch card what they look like. So this is the Forest Brown. It just is more of an olivey brown green. And then this is Forest Green. It's a much more almost sap green color. But anyway, so those were not new. I've used those before. But then the new ones that I added, we have Daniel Smith Undersea Green. This one's been on my list for a long time. It's a beautiful color. The swatch here doesn't do it justice. You actually get a better idea of it on this palette right here. It's so separating and unique and interesting. You see blue, yellow, green in there. It's granulating. Very, very pretty color. It looks close to the Forest Brown, but it is different. It is darker in certain ways, so I wanted to have both. This last green is Sennelier Greenish Umber. Beautiful, beautiful dark green. It's a little bit granulating, and I wanted it instead of Perylene green. Oops. It's very similar to Perylene green, but slightly different. This is what it looks like right here. Isn't that just beautiful? You can't really see the granulation. I used too much paint there, but it does, so I'm told, have a little bit of granulation in it. So that's my other green. Moving on to blues, this is another one of the forest colors. I've used this one quite a bit. You can see Forest Blue is one of my all-time favorite watercolor colors that I've ever used, so it had to go on the palette. This next one is Lunar Blue, and at the moment, this is probably my top favorite watercolor color that I currently own. Probably because it's perfect for winter landscapes, and I'm feeling very inspired by winter landscapes at the moment, but this color is just stunning. I absolutely love it. I'm probably always going to have this color. I need to get a bigger tube one of these days, but this one is just beautiful. It's granulating, it's separating. It's kind of a turquoisey black bluish color. It's absolutely stunning for skies and for snowy scenes. So if you're looking for something like that, it's beautiful. I could also see it being really pretty for like a summer lake. Just gorgeous. Helio Turquoise is the next one. It's one that I already owned. It's a very powerful pigment, and it's not one that I use much on its own because it's so vibrant. You can see right here, but it's great for mixing, great for oceans, for water. it's really pretty. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and include that because I didn't have a turquoise. Even though Lunar Blue is slightly turquoise, I didn't have a pure turquoise color, and I thought I'll just go ahead and add it. All right, so another new color. It's new, but I've used it before in a half pan. This is French Ultramarine. It's a great mixing blue. It's more of a reddish blue. So these two are, well, I'll add this third one here. This is Anthraquinone Blue. These are my primary mixing blues. The other blues are ones that I would use more likely on their own. These are ones that I'm definitely going to be adding things to. I wouldn't necessarily use them straight out of the tube. Maybe the Anthraquinone, but not necessarily these two. But this is the cooler blue for the mixing. This is the more reddish blue. I think I said it's granulating. This one's really good to mix with quinacridone, burnt orange. They make some really pretty mixes. So the Anthraquinone Blue, this is one of the very first professional watercolors I ever owned. This is the one that came from Amazon. It's M. Graham. Beautiful, beautiful dark blue. Here's what it looks like, swatched out. It's amazing. It's a honey-based watercolor, so it's a little more sticky when it dries, but it's worth having on the palette. Payne Gray is one of the next colors on the palette. I always have a Payne Gray. I'm never going to be without Payne Gray, and I like this one because it's more of a bluish Payne Gray versus just a plain gray. Some Payne Grays are more gray, and then the brand will sell a bluish Payne Gray. That's what Schmincke does, I believe. But this one by Jackson's, this is their one Payne Gray that they have, and it's more bluish. And I loved how it looked swatched out, and I want to try to make some monochrome paintings with this one. It's a pretty color for that because it's much more interesting than just pure black. So I'm excited to try that out. I want to do, after Christmas is over, I think I want to get into some more cityscapes, like some rainy day cityscapes, and use this to make some monochrome paintings like that. So I like street photography, and I haven't been able to do it as much, and so I'd like to maybe do some street painting. I love indigo, but indigo is not a very light, fast color, and this one is a very good replacement for indigo if you want that color, but it's more light, fast. It's very granulating. It's Daniel Smith, Sodalite Genuine. Beautiful, beautiful color. It looks really similar to the Payne Gray. You can see it's a little bit more blue, and it's obviously much more granulating, so love that color. And then the final color is Lunar Black. I don't like a pure black. I don't use black very often in my paintings, but I do like to have it. I usually mix it if I'm gonna have a pure black, but even then I like to use my blacks to lean one way or the other. This one's really unique because it's granulating, and so if I were to use just straight black, this is the one I would use because it's got more texture to it instead of just being a void on the paper. And that's everything. That's all the colors on my Dream watercolor palette. I'm gonna gather all these up, put them back in the box here.